Hey, welcome. So today, we're going to be detectives. We're tackling a huge question. How in the world do we know anything about our ancient past? About people who lived thousands of years ago. Let's grab our magnifying glasses and jump right in.
I mean, think about it for a second. It's kind of wild, right? The past, by its very definition, is gone. You can't just book a flight to ancient Rome. You can't interview a pharaoh. So, how do we piece together these lost worlds? How can we be so sure about what happened way, way back then? Well, that's the big mystery we're going to unravel together.
And here's the secret. You have to think about historians less like librarians and more like detectives. The scene of the crime, the past, is gone, but it left behind a trail of clues. They're scattered all over the place. An historian's job is to find them, analyze them, and piece the whole story together to solve the case.
All right, detective hats on. Let's get this investigation started. And just so you know, this is way more than just looking at dusty old things. This is an adventure. We're about to take a journey to a world that was, in a lot of ways, completely different from our own.
Exactly. Because history isn't about memorizing dates and names. Let's be real, that's the boring part. It's a journey. It's like a time machine that lets us visit another age, where everything from what people ate to who they prayed to was totally different. It's our doorway into their world.
So, where does a detective of the past start looking for clues? Well, our first stop is to literally dig in the dirt. We're talking about the physical stuff people left behind, which is the specialty of our first expert on the scene, the archaeologist.
So archaeology is basically the science of sifting through the leftovers of history. These are the folks on the ground, carefully digging up everything from the ruins of ancient cities to tiny little fragments of a clay pot. This stuff, these physical objects, this is our hard evidence. And it's absolutely amazing what a tiny clue can tell us. Just look at these two sets of ancient pig teeth. They look pretty similar, right? But there's a tiny difference between them that tells a massive story about humanity. Any guesses what that story might be?
The answer is one of the biggest turning points in human history: domestication. See, the smaller teeth belong to a domesticated pig, and the bigger ones, those are from its wild ancestor. As humans started taming animals, their bodies literally changed over generations. And this one shift is what allowed us to stop wandering and build villages, then cities, and eventually, the whole world we live in today. It all started with clues just like this one.
And of course, it's not just about teeth. Archaeologists find a whole treasure chest of clues. Stone tools, they tell us about technology. Pieces of pottery, they give us hints about cooking and art. The way people were buried tells us so much about their religious beliefs. Even just the layout of a house can show us how a whole community lived and worked together.
Okay, so our next set of clues takes us out of the dirt and onto the page. We're talking about the invention of writing. And let me tell you, this was an absolute game changer for our detective work.
Just look at this. This is a page from a manuscript, written by hand, more than 1,000 years ago. These texts were often written on really delicate stuff, like palm leaves or the bark from a tree. Honestly, they're so fragile, it's a flat-out miracle that any of them survived at all.
Now, when it comes to written clues, they usually come in two flavors. On one hand, you've got manuscripts, written on soft stuff. They could be about anything and everything: poems, science, stories. But because they were so delicate, a lot of them just got eaten by bugs or rotted away. On the other hand, you have inscriptions, which were carved into hard things like stone or metal. These were built to last. Kings would use them to brag about their victories or to post their laws for everyone to see.
And here's a really cool twist. Even after people figured out how to write, some of the most important stories weren't written down for a long, long time. Take the Rig Veda, one of the oldest sacred texts in the world. For centuries, it was an oral tradition. It was composed, memorized, and passed down from teacher to student just by listening. It was only put into writing hundreds of years later. So in this case, history actually started as a sound before it was ever a symbol on a page. How cool is that?
Okay, so we've got clues from the ground and whispers from the page. You'd think with all that evidence we could solve pretty much any case from the past, right? Well, like any good detective story, history has some seriously baffling unsolved mysteries. Let's take a look at this. For centuries, this amazing civilization, the Harappan civilization, was thriving in these huge, well-planned cities. We're talking advanced plumbing, long-distance trade, their own system of writing. They were way ahead of their time. And then, around 3,900 years ago, it all just stopped. People just walked away from the cities, and this incredible way of life vanished.
This is one of history's great cold cases. What happened?
Why would thousands of people just up and leave these incredible cities? It's a question that has kept historians and archaeologists scratching their heads for decades. The case file on this one is thick. Maybe the rivers they depended on dried up? Could they have cut down too many trees? Some clues point to huge floods. Other people think that maybe their animals ate all the grass and destroyed the landscape. Or was it some disastrous combination of all of these things hitting at once? The truth is, we just don't know for sure. But maybe that's the real lesson here, that even the greatest civilizations are fragile. And you know what? That's okay. The fact that some cases are still open is what makes history so exciting. It's not some dusty old book of facts that's already finished. No, it's a living, breathing investigation with new clues and new ideas popping up all the time. The search itself is the real adventure.
So, we've seen how the detectives of the past do their work, and we've seen that some mysteries might never be solved. But that brings us to our final and maybe most important question. Why? Why should we care about any of this today?
This right here, this quote nails it. We study the past because it helps us make sense of the present. The world we live in right now didn't just pop into existence. It was built, piece by piece, by everyone who came before us. Seriously, every part of our lives, the language you're hearing, the technology you're using to watch this, our laws, our ideas, all of it is a direct result of that long journey of history. Their discoveries, their mistakes, their successes, they all shaped the world we were born into.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. If you really want to understand the world you're living in today, you have to become a detective of yesterday. You have to figure out how we got here, because the clues to our present, they're always waiting for us, right there in the past.